Obviously, we're at the beginning of something. I don't expect you to know where it's gonna go, but I believe we might be on to something. And I just thought maybe you should know. I've been playing out a lot of hypotheticals in my mind. I've been writing your name down next to mine. Been imagining all the things you and I could do. I've seen all the possibilities in my dreams. You're alone when you should really be next to me. Baby, let's not wait and see. Immediate action isn't necessary. It's a fatal attraction. It's a little scary, but I got a plan of attack, and I'll get us there someday soon. I know it. I got a plan A and I got a plan B, and if it's absolutely necessary, we'll go to plan C. Whatever I gotta do to be with you. I've been playing out a lot of.
Well, do you have some hypotheticals for me? Because, I mean, we don't restrict access to hypotheticals. I mean, we don't reduce it down to that. It's Ask or Tell Me Anything. You can call up about anything you want, including a hypothetical. 888-720-9677, 888-720 WNPR. Yes, we are live on the air today while everybody else is starting their holiday week. But we like to keep doing stuff, you know, because we know. I was talking to somebody in the park about this today. You know, there's sort of stuff that you like. I used to, when I was maybe in my 30s, I used to watch the Today Show, and I don't know. I kind of counted on having it there. You know. Anyway, we will talk about anything, and we're about to prove that with Eric. Eric is called in from Cheshire. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Colin. I was on one of my vulture watching excursions this morning at the local post office, and I saw and video recorded a huge flock of vultures swarming above the post office, then descending onto three adjacent structures, which were a restaurant, the senior center, and a cell tower behind the fire department. And I saw them at about 6:50 a.m., which was shortly before the sun came up. They all arrived as a flock, and they were circling around in the air. And
was there any fiery writing across the sky? I need all the details here, not just the vultures.
Okay.
Fiery writing across the sky? Anything like that?
Fiery
writing, just words printed on the sky, but in fire.
No.
Something written in Latin, for example, along the sky. Okay, so we'll rule out that. It's probably not end times. Next question. Turkey vultures or black vultures?
Okay, black vultures. Okay, so that's a good point because these are not the turkey vultures we often see,
right?
But the black vultures that have the white patch on the underside of each wingtip.
Mm-hmm.
I counted after all these vultures landed on these three structures. I replayed the video clip and counted a total number of 53.
Okay, now let me ask you another follow-up question. Do you think the vultures were counting you? In other words, were the vultures up there going, okay, there's the guy over there who's holding up his phone right now. Then there's the people in the post office. Oh, it's not open yet. We could probably some workers in there. Then we got the senior citizens complex. We're going to get them sooner or later. I mean, do you think they were counting? You were counting, but were they counting?
There's only one of me. Maybe they heard my wish for an aerial burial.
I want an aerial burial. Or a sky burial. See if you can work that out for. Maybe get a deal for both of us. So for people who don't know, sky burials, they have different names for them, but it's kind of a Tibetan ritual, and they prop your body up in the mountains, and they just leave it there, and the birds fly down, and they take what they want and leave the rest, as Joan Baez would say. And that'd be really bad, if both of us had a sky burial at the same time. and only one of us was really particularly appetizing. The other one of us just, and they're like, wow, nope, don't. And also, it's also true that if you drink too much before your sky burial, the vultures will get drunk.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was thinking of requesting the St. Peter's Episcopal Church has a high bell tower, and on the roof sometimes the vultures congregate, and so I was just thinking for the heck of it of requesting that they put my corpse on top of that roof.
Right. And actually, vultures tend not to eat Episcopalians because they will get drunk if they eat an Episcopalian. So let's go out on that. That's an out cue. But thanks for your call, Eric. And all right, so it's all so interesting here. We'll just go right to Mike has been waiting. By the way, the number once again, if you, doesn't have to be about vultures, want to call us, but it could be 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. By the way, yes, black vultures, black head, turkey vultures, red head. That's how you can tell them apart. All right. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Colin. So I'm wondering if the incredibly egregious comments that President Trump made about the death of Rob Reiner, blaming death on the fact that Rob Reiner criticized President Trump, is some sort of a turning point, maybe. And the reason I say that is because on the day that it happened, I turned on Bret Baier's show on Fox News, and usually what happens is they totally defend him, or if it's so egregious they can't defend him, they don't even bring it up. But they did bring it up, and they were extremely critical. And then Ted Cruz and Senator John Kennedy and Don Bacon and John Thune. I mean, usually nobody says anything. And in this case, quite a few Republicans really greatly criticized him. And I know we've said this before. Could this be at the turning point? But I don't know. This feels a little different.
I don't know. One time, Bill Griffith, the creator of Zippy the Pinhead, was describing Zippy, and he just said one thought drives out another. So nothing that Zippy ever thinks about is permanent. It's just on to the next thing. And I think we've kind of turned into a nation of Zippies. In that that'll be my next book, A Nation of Zippies. But in the sense that things, as you just suggested, often seem as though they're in their own category. They're being talked about very, very differently, but they don't really have any permanence. I mean, really, Rob Reiner, those comments, which were utterly inappropriate and weird and sick and ungenerous and all those things, they're gone. I mean, we're on to different other Epstein stuff. I mean, it's just, and the Kennedy Center, all that stuff. I mean, stuff because, when the first semester that I taught in the Yale Political Science Department about political journalism in the age of Trump, we had a class slogan. And the class slogan was, every day something has to happen. Because Trump comes out of the world of reality television. And in reality television, that's one of the premises. Stuff has to happen. Erica has to throw some wine on Janet, because otherwise you have the Real Housewives just sitting there doing nothing. So, and I think Trump, because he thrives on occupying our mental space, and because he just needs to be the center of attention, whether it's in a positive way or a negative way, it's almost the same. He just is constantly creating new content about himself. So, yeah, I had the same sense that you did, that, wow, people seem to be treating this a little bit differently. You'd think kind of forcing us into a war with Venezuela would be a bigger problem than what he said about Rob Reiner. But people people like those movies. And, I mean, The Princess Bride is probably as beloved by a lot of conservatives as by liberals. But I know I don't. I think what's happening now, I think the change that I'm seeing, but it's like a change that's confined to maybe parts of yesterday and today, so probably won't be there tomorrow, is that for the first time I see the Republican Party really kind of reacting about what will happen after Trump. Because, I mean, I think there's some questions about whether he'll live all the way through this term or whether he will become so dysfunctional that they have to go to the 25th Amendment, however reluctantly. And you see Vance really trying to set himself up. He is now running for president. I think starting this weekend, he's running for president. Ted Cruz is almost running against him for the Republican nomination. That's what I think. I think people are sort of within the Republican Party and sort of outside the beating heart of the MAGA movement in the Republican Party, people are thinking, what comes next? Because this isn't working all that well. His numbers are down. He doesn't seem to have a lot of rabbits left in his hat that he can pull out. So what are we going to do when this doesn't work anymore? Are we going to take another swing at it with Vance? How different is Vance from Trump? Are we going to go somewhere else? That's what I see a little bit, and it's coming rather early. He hasn't quite reached his 1-year anniversary yet.
The other interesting thing is that this weekend at the Turning Point rally, which is the late Charlie Kirk's organization, apparently they hardly ever talked about Democrats. They were all slamming each other, like the Nick Fuentes side versus the Ben Shapiro, which is marginally more moderate, I guess you could say, and there was real fireworks going on within that movement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the existential debate right now, that Nick Fuentes and his Groypers, to what degree can they be accommodated at all within the Republican Party? And there's certainly a lot of people saying and writing, no, it can't, don't let any of these people in here. It's not just Ben Shapiro, who obviously, has a particular rooting interest. But I mean, I think beyond that, just people who think that there are limits to the size of even a big tent are looking at that and saying that can't possibly be us. And so, yeah, that's a big conversation as well. But I think the conversation is kind of intra-party right now rather than inter-party. But we'll see. I mean, it's only Monday. Things could be very different. All right, we're going to keep going here. Let's go over to Linda first, and then we'll go to Owen. Okay. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Colin. I'm here to thank you for your beautiful interview with Paul Winters, and that you mentioned the solstice concert that was coming up in New England. And I did see it Friday night in New Haven. And while I was listening, I really was thinking, I have to call Colin and thank you for the interview, for sharing what you do, for the beautiful in-depth interviews and really respectful of the artist, and Happy New Year.
Well, first of all, thank you for that. I mean, my heart kind of broke because we had plans to go into New York this weekend. We had tickets to see Michelle Williams do Anna Christie in New York. And these were long-standing plans that we weren't going to change them. But, I made it impossible for me to go down to Woolsey Hall and hear and see what Paul was doing there with that, particularly with that organ, which I think, everybody knows is world-class. Then I also miss Carolyn Payne's Nutcracker Sweet and Spicy. Carolyn Payne, longtime friend of the show, and that changes every year. I wanted to see what she was doing this year. I don't know. I'll say one more thing, and then I'll let you say a little bit more because I can tell you want to. You have more to say. When that is, this is quite a few years ago. Steve Metcalf and Jim Chapdelaine and I were backstage at Playhouse on Park in West Hartford at a LaTanya Farrell concert, and she had asked us to just come on and do one number with her, White Christmas, in fact. So, and backstage, both Steve and Jim they were like family things that they had kind of stepped away from. It was very close to Christmas. And they were kind of fretting about that, and we need to get this thing done because they can run back and everything. We're thrilled to be with LaTanya. We love her, but they're kind of worried about stuff. And Jim Chapdelaine said something that I will never forget. He said, "Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you're disappointing someone else." And that's how I felt about this weekend. Like, I really was disappointed that I couldn't see Paul, and I think Paul was eager to have me down there and seeing it, and I felt the same way about Carolyn. I know it was important to her, and it was important to me. But that's life, right? Right, Linda? You can't, unfortunately, we cannot split and be in two places at once.
That's the bane of my existence, that I can't be in two places at once. And when I first looked up the dates, I did, when I saw that he would have some matinees up in Florence, Massachusetts, and I think not North Adams, maybe Northampton. And I was like, oh, that would be a little more convenient for me. But they were sold out.
Yep.
And so the serendipitous thing is that I said, I don't care how late it is. I didn't have anybody to go with. I was going to go hear him. And so the serendipitous thing is, I knew nothing about Wolsey Hall. I knew nothing about the organ. And there was a piece where I was thinking to myself, how come I feel like there's a mermaid swimming in front of me? You know, and then I said, oh my gosh, they are playing the organ. And he hadn't introduced the organist for a few pieces. And then he, said who was playing the organ. And I'm sorry, I don't recall. But I would not have imagined that they could incorporate that organ into his music. And so I always feel so fortunate when something is either sold out or I missed the date by procrastinating, and it turns out to be something even more spectacular.
Yeah, and I think also with Paul, his whole shtick, his whole gig is meant to be able to accommodate new sounds. I know for a fact, he was very amped up, weeks before the date when I was talking to him. He was very amped up about getting to work with that organ because he's used to the one at Cathedral of St. John the Divine, which is also a really good organ. So, but if you can play with a wolf and you can play with a bear and you can play with a whale,
yes.
you could probably add, any kind of musical instrument to it. Linda, I'm so glad you had a great time, and I'm so happy to hear from you. And we are going to we've got Owen, Bill, and Contessa. We'll see how many of them we can get before we have to go to a break. Let's go to Owen right now. Hi, Owen. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. How are you doing today?
Just fine.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. So my question was, I was actually listening a couple weeks ago, and I heard you make a comment about the tribal nature of where someone went to high school in Stanford. Being an alum of West Hill, I got a good chuckle out of that. I just wanted to know, how you became privy to that dynamic.
So yeah, just to sort of flesh this out a little bit. So it is kind of true that when you meet somebody from Stanford, it's like Don Rickles used to, do crowd work, and he'd talk to the audience, and so he'd say, "Where are you from?" And somebody would say, "New Jersey," and he'd say, "What exit?"
Yeah.
And so with Stanford, if you're going to meet somebody from Stanford, what high school is an existential question. It's not a demographic detail.
Yeah.
It's an existential question that you're asking somebody. It is a defining aspect of their lives in a way that it just isn't. If you went to RIP, that's so different from West Hill. It's so different from Stanford High School. And I know all of this because of my oft-mentioned friend on the show, Mr. Karp. I went to college with Mr. Karp. And when you go to going to college with Mr. Karp, who's from Stanford, but you go to school not with just Mr. Karp. You go to school with lots of people who went to high school with Mr. Karp, but didn't get into Yale, but they're there anyway because they're all from Stanford and they went to high school together. And they played on teams together and stuff like that. And so there's one person who I will not mention because he's actually attained a somewhat prestigious role in the life of Connecticut on his own. But we're going to have our 50th college reunion this coming May. And he goes to our reunions with us, although he did not attend Yale University. But that's the thing. Like, if you have a friend from Stanford, you have like 5 or 6 friends because he's going to bring his high school friends with him into your friendship. And I welcome that. But anyway, Bill, I hope that's helpful. And I'm sorry. I hope that's helpful in fleshing things out a little bit. All right, we got Bill and we got Contessa, and they both look exciting. Let's start with Contessa, just we're alternating kind of, men and women and stuff like that. Contessa, you're on the Contessa from New York, you are on the air.
Colin, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to tell you that when I first moved from Europe into this region, I heard you on the radio, and you had said something that came off as quite nefarious, and it didn't make sense to me. And I listened to you a couple times because where I was, you were actually on the radio 3 times a day.
Oh my God!
And at that time, and I was unpacking, and I'd hear you during that time. And as I was telling the woman who engaged my call, it didn't fit into my brain anywhere. I didn't know where to put you because I was so information centric when I first got here because of the condition of the country. And I just want you to know that in the confluence of your mind and the way that your mind works, that I believe that you're a national treasure and that you're one of the most valuable voices in the United States. And I I just wanted to thank you for both your sacrifice and your intelligence. And I'm like, you're like an uncle to me. That's like one of the most valuable voices in my life that a lot of other people maybe didn't always understand in the beginning, but because I have the intelligence that can match somewhere in your hemisphere, I can stand for you. And I just wanted to applaud you, and I wanted to thank you. And I think that you're of a great value.
Well, that's very, very sweet, and I'm very touched by that. I don't really consider myself to be quite worthy of everything that you've just said. It's kind of like I was in New York City this weekend, and I happened to really like. I'm about to compare myself to chicken salad, but I happen to really like the chicken salad that they have at West Side Markets all around New York City. And so we were about to get in the car and head home, and I was like, everybody else was finishing up what they were doing, and I said to the other people who were there, who live in New York City, I said, I think I'm just going to walk over to West Side Market, and they said, for the chicken salad, right? And I said, really? Has this become something that you know about me, that I want the chicken salad? So, and so one of the people at the party is the owner of a really, really prestigious, owner and founder of a really prestigious, kind of wonderful Mexican restaurant in the East Village. And she said, oh, I don't think I've ever tried that, and I really like chicken salad. So when I went over there, I bought 2 containers of chicken salad for myself and 1 for Barbara. And I brought it back, and she's getting like all excited about this. And I said, I may have oversold this a little bit. I mean, it's just chicken salad, right? And I said, on the other hand, I was very upset that at West Side Market, they did not have gift wrapping. I really feel like I should give you this container of chicken salad with some nice gift wrapping. But, first of all, I am so indebted to you and so grateful to you for your very, very kind words. But I'm chicken salad, though, ultimately. I might be really good chicken salad. But
Colin, let me respond.
Okay.
Let me respond to your retort. I just wanted to say that this is just classic Colin talking himself off the shelf of his own value. And I think it's funny, and I think it's part of your strength to be so lighthearted. And that was one of the things that threw me off so much when I first moved back to this country. I'm like, why is he so lighthearted? This place is a mess. But Colin, in effort to let you know how valuable you are, you cannot talk this down.
All right.
And I wanted to thank you again.
Well, thank you. You're so sweet. My staff is now worried I'll become even more insufferable. But but listen, being lighthearted, remember that old thing? Was it about the De Laurentiis? Somebody who said living well is the best revenge. I think being lighthearted is the best revenge. I agree. The country's a mess. I think being lighthearted is one of the ways that we maybe, get a little revenge or at least a little bit of leverage over what a mess things are. Contessa, it's been beautiful to talk to you, and thank you so much for your kind words. I don't think I can possibly live up to them, but I'll try to disappoint you in a fairly moderated way, okay? And we're going to take a little break here. If Bill can hang on here for just a few seconds, we'll get started with him on the other side.
Vacant snow is brushing through the wiry trees. I stuff my hands down deep inside my coat. I think of years ago and half remember Christmas trees and faces that still warm me with their glow. The cold and empty evening hangs around me like a ghost. I listen to my footsteps in the snow. The sound of one man walking through the snow can break your heart, and stopping doesn't help, so on I'll go. Christmas Eve can kill you when you're trying to hitch a ride to anywhere.
You know, we're also on the lookout for somebody to write another really good holiday song for this holiday season. I think this is pretty close. I think it's pretty darn close. I could imagine the Shinolas performing this at our Christmas show, our holiday show next year. I'll say a little bit more about the holiday show in just a second, but right now I want you to know that it's Ask or Tell Me Anything. The number to call is 888-720-9677. 888-720, I'm actually punching it out on the payphone on the side of the wall, 888-720-WNPR. You call and you can bring up anything you want to. And you know, just in keeping with my new relationship with Contessa, I would say I will try to disappoint you gently. That's the best I can offer. I'm probably going to be a little bit disappointing, but I'll try to make it gentle. All right, let's talk to Bill in Bradford. Been waiting patiently, and he will wait no longer. Hi, Bill.
Hello, Colin. It's great to speak to you. I want to tell you first that I changed my message, and the first thing I want to say is that I respect you intellectually so much. I honor the fact that you teach or you taught at Yale and your work at Hartford Current. The intellectual sparkling that you give to me every time I listen to you is amazing.
All right, thank you. I'm famously uncomfortable with praise, so we should probably move along here.
My background, real quick. I'll keep it to less than half a minute.
Okay.
Is that I went to Williams, graduated, and went to Brown, did a master's, and went to medical school. Graduated from there. I didn't get into Yale. I tried. So my last part of my message to the public is that I am saddened that we're led by a very evil, immoral, unethical president, and that's how I changed my message. Thank you for letting me put it out over the airwaves, and thank you. I'm sorry with the praise to you, but it's from the heart.
Well, thank you. One thing that you brought up, I think, in your talking with your Robyn before you went on the air here, had to do with what kind of people voted for this guy. And I still think it's important to retain some sense of the humanity of a lot of the people who voted for him. And it's important to also understand that not everybody who votes in elections has the same information load as everybody else. So, a lot of times people go into the voting booth, they just know a little bit, they know a little bit, they probably know a little bit less than they should know. They may have been attracted to things that were really important to them. And so, I think that Donald Trump, particularly in the last cycle, was elected partly by people who thought, like young men who thought, I will never be able to make a 20% down payment on a house. I will never own a house. Everything is just stacked against me. And there's got to be some kind of change. There's got to be somebody who's plausibly in my corner. It's that kind of dissatisfaction. Trump is, he's a demagogue, and demagogues run off of your dissatisfaction. Not so much about your hopes and dreams, but those of your hopes and dreams, that portion of your hopes and dreams which you currently regard as under somebody else's boot and repressed and unavailable to you. And he knows how to do the rhetoric of that. He's very, very good at it. I think we have to sort of at least cut some people a little slack. There are some people whose America First attitude. I was just reading this really interesting conversation between Nicholas Kristof and a Christian theologian who just said, there's so many things that Jesus would be really uncomfortable with right now, but certainly that idea that strangers, that people who are not exactly like you, that people who are born in other countries, that they don't have the same level of humanity, don't deserve the same kind of human and divine love. He just would be very, very uncomfortable with that idea. It's like everybody is everybody, and every child is sort of theoretically a child of all of us. So a frightened child, a child who's malnourished, that's our child. So there are some people who I think really have forced their way past the morals that were imparted to them. And they still think of themselves as virtuous and moral people, but they're willing to live with those kinds of disparities, with treating other people as though they were less than and maybe not even worthy of full access to the accessories of life or to the components of life. So, and I have a real problem with those people. But I think there's a much larger portion of people who just thought, I don't know, nobody's saying anything to me about the stuff that I'm worried about. This guy at least is telling me what I already know, which is that nobody's telling me what I need to hear. He at least gets that part, so I'm going to vote for him. And I think we have to be able to talk to those folks and maybe get them to, just get in dialogue with them.
Well, Colin, I'm so floored by your comments. I mean, really, they spoke to my mind, and they clarified some of my perhaps muddled thoughts. I thank you for that.
All right. Well, my thoughts are still muddled, so I don't know what we're going to do about that. But yes, the number to call, and we're going to go to Candace in just a second, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. That's the number to call. You can ask or tell me anything, bring up anything you want to tell. I think I'm about to sneeze. That could be a problem. I want to, before I go to Candace, just say that on Wednesday, we will, both at 1 o'clock and at 9 o'clock, and also for our podcasting friends, we will air part 1 of our holiday special. So we've turned this into an annual practice that will probably continue. We go to Watkinson School. We were there pretty early in the cycle this time. I think it was December 4th. And we recorded a lot of singing and a little bit of joking around and I don't know what else, but just a lot of music by a whole bunch of really talented musicians, ranging from Steve Metcalf and LaTanya Farrell to the Shinolas with Jim Chapdelaine and Matt and Atla D. Champlain and whoever else I'm leaving out. And we did some Christmas songs and we did some non-Christmas songs. And so on Wednesday, you will hear the Christmas portion of it, which has been elaborately, lavishly, and painstakingly mixed and mastered by our technical producer, Dylan Reyes, and our producer, Jonathan McPants. And it's going to sound wonderful. And then we'll do a similar thing on New Year's Eve at 1 and 9, and also available for podcasting. You will hear our New Year's Eve show. I guess you may not hear our New Year's Eve show. Will they also hear it on noon the preceding Saturday? I think they will. I've lost track of the schedule. But I just want to sort of encourage you to, because, I think also, I always tell the staff, one of our jobs is to be good company. So, if you're just hanging out on New Year's Eve day or Christmas Eve day, want to hear some friendly voices and maybe laugh a little bit, you might want to tune in for all that. Okay, let's go to Candace. I am going to be at a slight disadvantage here, but I will explain that as we go. Hi, Candace.
Yes. Good afternoon. So I'm happy to be on the radio. And I'm making a great movie even greater, or a good movie really great, by changing one of the scenes.
Okay.
Okay. So have you seen La La Land?
I have, but here's how I'm at a disadvantage. I saw La La Land in the year that it came out in a movie theater, and I really haven't ever thought about it again. It wasn't one of those movies where I thought, oh, I'll have to watch this again, because I bet you there's a lot of things that I'll enjoy even more. I didn't have that reaction to the movie. So you may have to help out a little bit, and also you might have to explain what you're talking about for the benefit of other people who either have never seen La La Land or, like me, don't remember much about it.
Okay. And then I can ask about The Lost City. I have a great scene for that. And then a Johnny Depp movie, he was in Alice in Wonderland. But if you want, I'll go back to La La Land.
Go where your heart takes you right now. Follow your heart.
So La La Land, there's a scene. Ryan, the star, is playing the piano, and Emma, the lady star.
Yeah, that'd be Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So she passes by and she hears this fabulous music and she walks into the room, and he's in a bad mood. He gets up, he has to rush out, and he brushes by her. They actually touch shoulders, and it's kind of rude. Mm-hmm. Rather than that, why not pick her up in slow motion, swing her around, sit her down in the chair, and say, not now. And later in the movie, they do meet by chance, and she says now, but they missed that scene. It could have been just swooping her around. And yes, I think that would have made a greater scene or a more memorable movie.
You know, Candace, it makes me think that my position for all of 2025 has been there's nothing good about AI. Now, I know for the fact that's not true, but that's my whole thinking about AI. There's nothing good about it. Nothing good will come from it. I mean, I'm increasingly aware of the fact that, for example, medically, good things will come from AI, but more bad things will come. But I'm sort of thinking AI, you know, I could sort of see, like, there's the Criterion Collection. I could see, like, sort of a collection of movies that have the Candace edit. You know, so it'd be La La Land, the Candace edit, and then that would be in there. AI would create the thing that you just described, you know, and then like you could pick 4 or 5 other movies with the scene that you think should have been in there. And it's kind of like, you know, Jonathan McPants and I were doing last week. We were talking about movies where there's a scene that we think could be a whole movie. Like, you know, we would just like to see a movie that's sort of about the whole parallel world of this minor character who's in, you know, a small portion of movie A. That movie B would just be about that person. So maybe the good thing about AI is we'll just be able to, you know, have AI make up things that we want to exist that wouldn't exist otherwise.
Yeah, speaking of parallel worlds, I'm totally frightened of parallel worlds.
You're frightened of them? What do you think?
I don't want to be in one. Yeah,
let's analyze this for a second. We've got Bob and Mark, but I think this is worth pause. So you're frightened of parallel worlds, like sort of like multiverse situations where there's like another world with another Candace who's doing something very different?
Yes. And am I in it? And did I lose a grandchild there? Or am I in one now and I'm going through this? Yes. Parallel worlds. I don't want to be in one.
Well, I mean, if you're in, this is really an interesting question. I mean, this is like a whole show almost. But you're having an experience right now that is fundamentally your experience, your kind of Candace Prime experience in this world. And I don't know how your existence in this world would be affected by a different Candace, a Candace who's identical but different. I think that's our assumption about parallel worlds. There's a Candace there who's identical but different, who's having a different set of experiences there. I don't see how that impinges on your own experience. Now, it could be in Candace 2, you know, that's the parallel world that has the identical but different version of you. You're being picked up by Ryan Gosling and swung through the air, you know? In which case, you're kind of missing out on this crappy existence you're having now, where there's some other version of you being swung through the air by Ryan Gosling.
Yes. And this whole, I'm given this advice, well, let it go. Well, let it go where? Let it go where? It keeps coming back or
other people, wait a minute, other people have advised you on how to think about parallel worlds?
Well, yeah, anything that's troubling. Well, let it go.
I think stressing about parallel worlds is an unnecessary level of agita. I think there's like enough on this world to be stressed out about, to Contessa's point, so that you don't need to be stressing out about parallel worlds. Who cares? It's none of our business what they're doing there. It doesn't care. It's none of our business what's happening on some reticulation, you know, that exists in some chamber of a multiverse. I think we just have to, you know, we got to stick to our knitting, as they say. And some of us will have to take up knitting in order to be able to stick to it. All right. So I think I have to take a break now. That was really interesting, though. I'm going to think about that all day. Like, should we be bothered about what might be happening to different versions of us in a multiverse? All right. Bob and Mark and everybody just stay put, and we'll get right back to you.
Spring has come, see it in the trees, and each flower that blooms reminds me of you. A bird outside my window sings this groove, that love is real, it's part of the big truth. Do you see?
All right, we're back. And that song was picked out by Dylan Reyes, the maestro, our technical producer, who is theoretically not only off today, but is not even in the state of Connecticut. But he is unable to stop working on this show. I mean, we don't make him do this, but he is unable to. He can't help himself. Anyway, thanks for that. Meanwhile, running the board today, actually someone, a superior being, not only to the maestro, but to kind of all of us, and that would be the exalted Jedi Master, Eugene Amatruda, the Obi-Wan of CT Public. We're very honored to have him technically producing us today. The actual episode's being produced by the aforementioned Jonathan McPants, and on the phones is our boss, Robyn Doyon-Aitken, who is, just sort of warm and sweet and well-adjusted and generous. She has a fully integrated personality. She doesn't seem to have massive psychological defects. It's kind of disgusting, frankly, but we love her anyway because we just like knowing somebody who's that nice and wonderful. And being supervised by somebody that nice and wonderful. It's a dream come true. All right, so we're going to go back to the phones here. Let me grab Chris first, and then we'll go to Leo, and we got Bob, and we got all kinds of stuff. Actually, Bob's asking a similar question. Mark's got Green Bay trivia. We'll see what we can get to. But hi, Chris, you go first.
Chris.
Yeah, you, Chris, me, Tarzan.
I didn't think I was going to fit in till later.
No.
So Merry Christmas to me. I made a discovery, which was I wanted to double my monthly contribution to WNPR or CT Public, whatever you are.
Whatever we are.
And at any rate, I did discover, after a little fiddling around, and you guys should advertise this, that if you just go into donate, they will into your account, and they will give you the option to bump up your contribution. But you guys need to, sorry, I'm panting and walking my dog. You need to kind of remind people that they can do that.
Yeah,
how they would do
that's
that.
right. So just to be clear, you go to ctpublic.org. There's a little square that says donate. You click on that, and then you can actually bump up the size of your donation. What's your dog's name?
Excuse me?
What's your dog's name?
Pete.
Pete?
Pete.
That's a nice name for a dog. What kind of dog is it?
An Australian Shepherd. He's a very fluffy brown Australian Shepherd, and we didn't come up with a name. We bought him when he was 18 months old.
Yeah, Pete was already
But
Pete.
it suits him very well. Sometimes he's Sneaky Pete, and sometimes he's Sweet Pete. Sometimes he's...
It's like Pete is almost living in parallel worlds, where there's one world where there's a sneaky Pete,
Absolutely.
and there's a mean Pete, and there's a wonderful Pete. Hopefully you're living with the wonderful one, and thanks very much for thinking about us and still thinking about how it is that we support the endeavors that we're doing right now. We're going to go now to Leo. Leo is, in fact, somebody I've known for many, 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 many years. And one of the things that Leo has become in his retirement is an expert on happiness around the world, and I think that's about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, well, why not?
Sure.
Actually, I was kind of thinking about doing it back in 2018. I visited the 10 happiest countries in the world at the time, just so I could take notes and talk to folks. And America wasn't that happy back then, and now we're back in kind of like the same funk that we were, only greater this time. So I think we need to get more evidence and more discussion about what the happy countries do that we're not doing, which is a lot of things.
Yeah, so, I was also thinking about that.
Announcing here today that I am going to go back for part 2.
Really?
And we got there's a couple of countries like Costa Rica and Israel that are in the happiest tier that I haven't been to. So they made their way up in the last 6 years.
Yeah, they've been climbing the ladder. Well, I was thinking about this too, Leo, because there's been a lot of conversation in the RFK Junior HHS about going to the so-called Denmark model of childhood vaccinations. And when people try to explain why that's not necessarily a transferable concept to the United States, a lot of things get said, including the fact that I think Denmark has 6 million people, maybe, which makes a smaller population than the greater New York City.
Easier to manage, yeah.
Yeah, easier to manage. I think some of the things, you feel free to enlarge upon this or contradict me, that contribute to that happiness is a sense of a social safety net, a sense that you're not working yourself to death every year just to be able to afford health insurance and meet a few other basic needs. That in fact, it is. A system that where there's an understanding that the state exists to look after the people, and the people exist to look after one another. You watch out for your fellow citizens. You consider that you have a responsibility to your fellow citizens, and in that kind of situation, disease prevention and epidemiology are easier to accomplish because, first of all, people are getting screened all the time. They're getting regular checkups. They're getting screened for diseases that they could otherwise maybe transmit to a fetus or something like that. I don't know. It's like everything but you should say something about this before we run out of time. Denmark is not the United States. Denmark has figured things out that the United States probably will never be able to figure out.
Well, there's more of a motivation for people to take care of people than for people to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one thing that's very, very strong. And they do have the culture where they do have a sincere commitment to the people that are there. They have a commitment to the environment and a lot of other things. And when you think about having a universal health care, where you don't have to worry about paying the premiums, you don't have to worry about paying the co-pays, the number one consideration for getting health care is whether you're sick or not.
Yeah.
And then if you are sick, you go and you get it taken care of. So they have better outcomes in terms of longevity and everything else. And that's universal across at least the 10 plus happiest countries, and we're dropping down to 25th now. So we're going in a high speed backward. But one other thing I want to add in the next tour is I definitely want to start talking to all these people about how they're managing AI.
Yes.
Because we're not.
Yeah.
We're not. They're going to have a system where the people are taken care of more by AI. We're going to have a system where AI is going to take care of us.
Yeah, but not in a good way.
In the derogatory sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So AI is going to make sure it gets taken care of by us. I think is probably closer to the case here. But I hope if you do that, I hope you'll phone in and
March 20th is World Happiness Day.
Right.
So I'm hoping to get in a few of the ones I haven't been to, and before March 20th, and then I will definitely put you on the list to do a report.
Yeah, make a full report to us. All right, Mark. I'm sorry I didn't get to the Green Bay trivia. I'm so depressed about the Green Bay Packers right now. It probably isn't even a good thing for me to do. I mean, I went to see a Eugene O'Neill play on Saturday night rather than watch the Packers, and I avoided the greater tragedy. The Eugene O'Neill play was way sunnier. Gene, you can bring the music up. It's time for us to go, and thank you so much for listening today.
The number you have reached has been disconnected.